Welcome to the Menopause Mindset Podcast, the place to get some answers and feel supported along this often bumpy journey. Many people sail through menopause, but many people don't. And so my guests and I are here to motivate you and inspire you so that you can make menopause a happier transition for yourself and for your loved ones. I'm Sally Garozzo and I'm an award-winning rapid transformational therapist, a menopause educator and the founder of the Sleep Superpower Academy. So without further ado, let's dive in. So my guest today is a functional medicine practitioner and a health coach. She specialises in personalised programs, fat loss and hormonal profiling for women in their 20s right through to their 50s and beyond. She's also a qualified personal trainer and a yoga and Pilates instructor. And my guest is a true believer that only a personalised approach will achieve sustainable results for her clients. She offers one-to-one support, metabolic reset programs for men and women, and a Thrive Through Menopause group program. A lawyer by day, Beth is passionate about helping women achieve a healthy balance in the hectic city of Hong Kong. So Beth Wright, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. That might be one of the best introductions I've ever had. So thank you, Sally.
Oh, that's all right. I'm kind of surprised that you are a lawyer by day and you do all this coaching, you sort of moonlight doing all this coaching work. It seems a lot. It seems enough to me to be a lawyer. So why would you then want to add this extra layer of functional medicine and health coaching on top of that? I'm guessing it's because you are very passionate about it, but tell us why.
Well, it's a good question because sometimes I think to myself, are there enough hours in the day? But in a funny kind of way, they balance each other out. And I find, for me personally, the health and the nutrition and the wellness very much complement what is a fairly stressful day job. And I came to health and fitness when I was studying law, so well over 20 years ago. And that was because I needed to have a balance in my life to sort of my daily stressful, sitting in front of a desk type job. And I've always kept the two, I've always kept the balance. And I think that allows me today to perhaps have an insight into some of the clients that I work with. They often tend to be sort of people that have stressful jobs or corporate jobs or mums or both, actually. So I am, to use a word you use, really passionate about providing them with the tools and the insights and the resources to be able to manage both as best that we can, at least.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So I'd love to know from you, where are you at in your own menopausal journey and what's your experience been like?
This is such a great question. I'm at that stage where each month I go, is it now? Is it now? So what I mean by that is, from the outside, to me at least, it seems that each month I get a period, I get a cycle. I do a symptom tracker every month as well, which we can chat about, which is my way of checking in with how my body feels and what my body's doing. And to all intents and purposes, everything still feels pretty good. But my two takeaways from that, and to anyone listening to this, is I feel a big part of that is due to the fact I've placed a lot of emphasis on my health and my wellness, and stuff we're probably going to talk about today, for the last 3 or 4 years, with the full intention that I go into this in the best possible way that I can, and the fact that I know what to look out for. So I suspect it's any time now, and as you know better than anyone, it can be happening earlier before we even experience symptoms. So
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny you say that because I'm exactly the same at the moment. I'm like, is it coming? When's my period coming? What are we doing now? Oh, there's a bit of spotting, really? And it's just
and this feeling of like slight trepidation, like, and almost excitement, because then I finally start this stage of my life, manage this, and then we're on to this next stage of life. So yeah, there's a bit of excitement and a bit of trepidation, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that as well, for sure. I am actually now quite excited about entering that year when I don't
Yeah.
have periods, for sure.
Yeah.
So, for anyone that is watching this on YouTube, you will see that Beth is actually quite ripped on top, aren't you, my love?
You.
You really are. I'm like really admiring the contours of your shoulders and your biceps. What's
Thank you.
what's your regime like for yourself?
Um, I've always loved strength training. I've always been into fitness. And as you and I were chatting earlier, we both started our sort of fitness journey with teaching aerobics. And for me, it was teaching aerobics and personal training. And I've always maintained that. What I've noticed in the last sort of 5 to 10 years of my life, I used to be a bit of a cardio bunny, did lots of running. I found that that does not work for me as well. And so now I've really turned my exercise focus around, and I have a much heavier emphasis on strength training,
Yeah.
getting in the gym and really lifting heavy actually. And that's something I think is hugely beneficial for women in our age group, because as our hormones change, our response to exercise and movement changes. And I think what the research shows us now is one of the best things we can do is resistance train. So yeah,
Brilliant.
I'm focusing on that. Still moving, still walking my dog every day. But yeah, that's where my focus lies.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've just been listening to a podcast with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee
Nice.
and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and she was talking about how muscle is actually a metabolic organ and a hormonal is the biggest endocrine organ, if you
Yeah.
like, in the body, and how when we get older, actually sarcopenia can start setting in even as early as age 30. So I know for me, when I sort of hit a bit of a bumpy ride in my perimenopause, starting the strength training actually made me feel so different because one of the things I say about strength training is if you've been disempowered, find your inner power.
Oh, I love that.
And your inner power for me is the power of lifting weights. There's something really quite um well, empowering, but
Yeah.
magical's not the word, but like inspiring and life-giving, I think,
Yeah.
from lifting weights.
I could not agree more. Like when I see people training in the gym, or say if I was personal training a woman and she walks out of the gym having done a great PT session, 3 inches taller, and that height and strength and inner purpose or whatever we want to call it, that feeling gets translated into every aspect of your life. And I wish I could give that message to everyone, because I think there's a fear of getting into the gym if you've never done it before. So some of my tips would be, find a trainer that you connect with, like, because chemistry is super important, and a gym that you enjoy being in, so a nice environment, not intimidating. And yeah, just kind of get started. Really, don't be sort of scared to do that first step. But I love that you mentioned Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, because she is the biggest advocate for the importance of muscle mass and strength, and she does talk extensively about how as we get older we naturally not only maintain our muscle mass but we lose it, and that's called sarcopenia, which you just mentioned. So talking about women entering the menopause years, there's sort of two initial health issues, which are losing your bone density, so osteopenia, osteoporosis, and the second half of that is losing your muscle mass, so sarcopenia. So those are two immediate health issues that I think we really need to think about when we're going through this phase, and strength training is one of the best ways to offset both of those.
And it helps to regulate our hormones as well when we have better muscle mass because of the testosterone, and we just become a more of a metabolic machine, I suppose.
Yeah, in addition to a happier person.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you really do because you just feel more powerful when you've got that capacity to lift heavier weights. How much do you lift when you're doing deadlifts? What's your maximum?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, because I did a PB today, which probably a lot to some people, but I did lifted 70 kgs, and so I weigh 50, so that's almost 1.5 times my body weight. But it's taken me a while to get there, and I've been training many years, but that felt good.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna have to tell my trainer to put my weights up today.
Please do.
Yeah, I think she's been a bit kind on me recently. So I'm gonna have to impress that upon her. Okay, so Um, why do you stress the importance of a personalized approach when it comes to making these changes that women are
Mm.
looking for?
That's that. Well, that's something that I think the importance of which cannot be underestimated. And I think, we look out, we look at diets and we look at, what's in the media and what's in magazines and maybe what your personal trainer recommends. And quite often it's a cookie cutter approach. And each one of us are completely individual in the way that our body is responding to things, in what our hormones are doing, and what stage of life we're at, the amount of sleep we had last night. All of these things mean that there really has to be a personalized approach to get results. And I guess maybe I found that the hard way, because I tried to do everything, according to a particular diet or particular regime myself, and realized very quickly that I wasn't getting the results that I needed. And for me, I realized I had to dial into what my body was doing, how my body was feeling. And through that, I guess, educational leap, I then started to translate that to my clients. I think it's
Mm.
important.
Yeah, it really, really is. And I think the trouble is, books and YouTube videos and podcasts are so easily accessible and they're relatively inexpensive. So we
Yeah.
think we're going to find the answers just by reading a book. It's a cheap option. We'll read it, maybe we won't read it, maybe it will just stay on the pile.
Yeah.
Buying the book doesn't actually get you the change. First, you have to read it, then you have to implement it.
This
But
is
also,
correct.
I think yeah, and each, like you say, each person, their hormone profile is so individual. So do you do testing as well when you?
Yeah, I do. And I guess I do hormone testing, but I do perhaps what I think is more important is like a comprehensive blood panel with the women that I work with. Because hormone testing can really depend on the day. Like your testosterone levels will be different at 9 a.m. than they will be at 2 p.m. and the same for estrogen. And so you can go into the doctors and you can get one, and different throughout the different stages in your cycle. So the results you get on one day at one time can be completely different the next day. So when it comes to hormones, I do use testing, but I also use a symptom tracker. So I
Mm.
ask my clients to, there's a 30 plus list of symptoms, and I ask them to regularly assess where they are, how many are they ticking. And that will very quickly give me a really good indication of kind of where they're at. Because even if your hormones look good, if you've got brain fog and you've got night sweats and you're not feeling good and you're feeling depressed, something's not right, even if the blood work tells you you're fine. So that's for hormones. But generally, I think what is useful to check in women and in men actually are things like just like your total blood count, your vitamin D, your iron levels, your cholesterol, your triglycerides. And I think things like this are really, really important to look at, holistically. And women in particular, I think thyroid is a really good panel to run as well, because that very much gets affected when hormones go into, disarray when they're moving in different directions.
I've had my thyroid checked so many times and it's always come back normal, 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 even like the most advanced thyroid. I had a session with somebody a while back and she said that that the effects of your thyroid can be subclinical, as in they're not actually, there's something could be going on, like very subtle
Yeah.
shifts, but they're not actually showing up. So,
Yeah.
so designing a life where your stress levels are balanced, everything is as it as optimal as it can be, will help that thyroid even if it's not showing up as something that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I see quite a lot with thyroid panels are, there's 3 or 4 key markers that everyone always checks, but there's actually, 6 or 7 if you want to do the complete thyroid panel, including antibodies, which I think is, I mean, I'm sure you've done this, but for anyone listening, if your doctor's just testing T4, T3, thyroid stimulating hormone, I would say do the whole gamut. But also the ranges, when you get the blood work back, the ranges are based on suboptimally healthy people. So,
Right.
say you want to be between X and Y, but actually, for optimal levels, you probably need to be beyond that. So I think that's useful to know as well.
Mm.
And the biggest person that can tell, doctor can look at your blood work and whatever number shows up, but actually how you're feeling. Because if your blood work says you're fine, but you are feeling terrible each morning, you're dragging yourself out bed, you're always cold, you're gaining weight, your hands are dry. All this kind of stuff is telling you that something's probably a little bit amiss, and worth checking out.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so when somebody works with you on a one-to-one basis, what do they actually get from you as a person? So if I was to work with you, what would our relationship look like?
Kind of get the biggest cheerleader and someone that's probably as passionate and as invested, if not more so, I would like to say, in that person's end results, as they are. I don't work with a large number of people. I think it's really important, going back to what we're saying about that sort of trainer coach relationship, to have chemistry with someone. That's important for me and for that person. I take very seriously somebody's goals, and making sure that I can get them to that outcome. So yeah, so how it normally starts is someone will come to me, and it can be anything from, I want to lose weight, I want to check out where my hormones are, I'm going through menopause, what do I do, I want to gain muscle, I want to fit into my wedding dress, the list kind of goes on. I want to sleep better, stress less. I'm not a magician, but I'll do my best. And the way that I start is by asking them to fill in a questionnaire, and it's really in depth, it's detailed. But for me, that's really important because it helps me get below the surface. And if we're going to work together for a period of like 2 or 3 months, help me to support them throughout that journey. I recently qualified as a functional medicine health coach. So, I try and employ some of those techniques when I'm training with someone or coaching them, trying to get them to come up with some solutions themselves, as well as guiding them along the journey. Yeah,
Mm.
it's special that, as you know better than anyone, that coach, relationship is pretty special.
It really is actually, and I watched a program last night. It was called Ted Lasso. It's a football
Mm.
com. It's really, really good. And there's a therapist in it, and the guy says to her, "You only care because I'm paying you. You don't actually really care, do you?" And the session ends because he storms out, and she says, "Do you care about the footballers that you coach?" And he says, "Yeah, with a passion." Well, you're getting paid for that, and
Yeah,
you care. And it's
yeah,
exactly the same. I am so in, even though I'm getting paid for what I do and you're getting paid for what you do, there has to be an exchange. We live in an economic world where there's a flow of currency, and we need to live. But that doesn't mean I don't care. If I was just doing it for the money, I would not be a therapist
yeah.
because, you know,
Sure, for sure. And actually, something interesting as well. Like, I've done courses where I've offered them for free, like initially when I was first getting started. And I'll be honest with you, the buy-in that you get from somebody when they pay money is greater than when they don't, because you've got skin in the game. You actually put some money down and said, right, I am financially, physically, mentally, spiritually invested in this process. And I think that's important. So, I got sort of more people sort of drop out of the group when I was offering it for free than the people that now pay for it. So, I think it works in for both people's interest.
yeah, yeah, definitely. You do need to you need to be invested in it.
Yeah.
You need to be invested in your growth. Yeah, and that's what one-to-one can give you, and that sort of long-term support as well. Okay, so let's talk about hormone reset. You do a hormone reset program, which is it 4 weeks, the hormone reset program?
Yeah, it's actually, I call it the reboot and the reset.
That's right.
And it kind of came out because I was working with a lot of people, typically for 3 months. But some people would come to me and say, you know what, I feel like I don't need 3 months with you, Beth, but I wouldn't mind like a bit of a restart, like a kickstart. And so I created what I call the reboot and the reset. And the idea behind that is to show people that in 4 weeks you can affect change, like physiologically, definitely. I think you need a bit longer if you're to make long-term lifestyle changes, and that's normally when my 3-month program comes in. But for the 4 weeks, we work on really allowing people to reduce inflammation. I use the functional medicine elimination diet to start with. That helps reduce inflammation, improve digestion. As a result of that, you resensitize taste buds, you sleep better, you manage your stress better, and you learn a new appreciation of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And I don't know about you, but I think it's really easy to kind of lose sight of your inner voice. You can eat when you're not hungry and not eat when you're not, when you are hungry, and eat the wrong things. And it kind of allows people to just kind of recenter, regroup, and check in with what they need at that given point in time. It's a fun program. I run it as a group. So we set up like a group WhatsApp. So, and I have people from all around the world doing it. So, get people checking in at, like, in the middle of the night for us maybe, but first, so you kind of get this sort of wonderful, synergy of different people, different personalities. We share recipes and ideas. And at the outset, I give everyone everything they need. So they get the recipes and the meal plans and the exercise, all of this kind of stuff. And then once we start that, we just kind of form this group accountability, which is amazing. It's, rather than working one-on-one with me and having one coach, it's like you've got 20 coaches, which may or may not be your cup of tea, so it's, you do notice some people are quieter in the group than others, but what I do recognize is very few people drop out when we do it as a group.
Right. Yeah, I've been reading about this. I've been investigating because I have a sleep course,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking of reworking it so it's more friendly for everyone. It's more like what people want, actually, because it starts only September and March. And when your sleep is fucked, excuse my French.
Yeah, we've all been there. That's
Yeah,
how you feel.
you want something right away, don't you?
Yes, yes.
You don't want to wait to September or March. So I'm thinking of making it like an evergreen program, but a group
Right.
program with WhatsApp or Facebook group and some live Zoom calls as well. So I'm in the process of reworking that. But in my travels, I came across a business coach. I think her name's Gemma Gilbert, and she talks about the power of the group. And you're less likely to have a dropout if you've got a group running together, because that is how, as hunter-gatherers, we're programmed to function so much better in groups rather than isolation. We egg each other on, we learn from each other, we support each other, we're there for each other, we lean on each other. And it just makes so much sense to me. I remember when I first ran the Sleep Superpower Academy, there was quite a few people in the group, and it was that magic was so powerful between us. And actually, that's what really enabled people to watch the videos, make sure they were implementing the exercises, and making sure they were going to bed on time and tracking their sleep and eating the right foods and all that sort of stuff. So I really think that you've set that up quite well, and your menopause program is a group program too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And everything you just said, I completely agree with. It really does make a big difference to someone that might feel a little bit isolated and, not sure if they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, but someone else in the group is bound to be having the same experience. So yeah, I found it really, hugely beneficial for the people in the group. And to your point, that's one of the reasons why we've set up, I'm working with a doctor here in Hong Kong. We've set up what we call Thrive Through Menopause course, which will again be like a 6-week online course, but with a group. And so we'll have a group WhatsApp or maybe a Facebook, and we'll be doing weekly Zooms.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, so people know that we're all going through this, they're not alone. And I think there's a terrible sense of isolation when you're going through the menopause for a lot of us.
Yeah, there really, really is. And there has been, I don't feel it now because obviously I'm in that world, but I know that there are a lot of women out there that do feel very alone. Yeah. Um, you sort of alluded to it earlier when we were talking about the reset diet, the reset, was it reboot and reset course that you do?
Yeah.
Is this idea of intuitive eating.
Yeah.
And so and I find this, when I'm not eating particularly well, my intuitive eating goes out of the window. I can't intuit what I need, what my body actually wants. Because I think things like, sugar and gluten and alcohol and dairy, I think they interrupt the signals of our intuition. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And, the food is actually manufactured today to deliberately to do that. Like there's foods which are manufactured, for the exact amount of fat and sugar to trigger that I need more response. It triggers the dopamine receptors in our brain. So it's no wonder that, we have no idea what we need and what we don't need, because, big pharma, or the equivalent of in the food industry, is creating food to kind of interrupt the natural signals. that's one of the reasons why I created the reboot, was because for 2 weeks we dial into simple, natural, unprocessed foods, and all the things you just mentioned are out: dairy, alcohol, sugar, gluten, the things that could potentially kind of detract from signals that the body is sending. And so very quickly you're like, am I hungry? Am I not? What do I feel like? And yeah, it's a very, very quick, easy tool. Not easy to cut them out for 2 weeks, but it's an easy tool to dial into what your body needs.
And it makes me think, because in the times when I've really been eating very healthy and not had all those signals interrupted, my intuition around what I need is actually very heightened. So I'll
Yeah.
be like, I don't know why, but I'm craving radish. I need radish.
I might have to investigate that. There's probably a vitamin or a mineral that radishes are rich in that your body's craving.
Right, yeah. Or maybe just the fluid or the water, or that kind
Maybe.
of slightly peppery taste that they
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so odd. Like it's got that specific when I've been really in tune with it.
I love that. Yeah. And part of the sort of the second half of the 4 weeks is we gradually reintroduce the foods that have been eliminated. So that works for people to then really identify, does my body respond to this food in a positive way or in a negative way? And hopefully that's data that you can then take away and use in the future. So, it's kind of being a bit of a nutrition detective for you as a person.
I love that. It's really good. It's really inspiring. So let's talk about the S word, stress.
I did not think you were going to say that. Disappointing. Yeah, no, let's talk about stress.
Well, we can talk about sex if you want.
Good, yeah. Well, in some ways they're linked, but yeah, no, let's go.
Well, they are. They really are, because your sex drive goes down if you're stressed. But
Right.
okay, so how does stress affect menopause? Why is the stress narrative so important when we're talking about menopause?
Gosh, so many different ways. So I guess sort of a physiological level, when our hormones start to decline, and estrogen is kind of one of the key ones that you might notice immediately to start with. Then the body has to step in to sort of manufacture estrogen from other places. So normally it's not to get too technical, but normally it's the ovaries that mainly produce estrogen, and in particular E2, which is our strong, most powerful estrogen. And when that starts to decline, the body starts to look for it from other places. And one place that it can get it from is from fat cells. And as a result of that process, cortisol goes up. Cortisols are stress hormones. So what that means is this fluctuational decline of hormones responds, or the body responds in an elevated state of a stress response. Add on top of that the fact you're probably not sleeping as well. If you have hot flashes at night sweats, you might wake up in the middle of the night. Added to which just the stress of not knowing what the hell is going on with your body. What I see is a general overall lack of resilience, or lowered resiliency to life, which again, what that results in is the body releasing more and more cortisol to what might not have bothered you 10 years ago, but now bothers you now. And I see very successful businesswomen in the workplace who are suffering from brain fog, lack of being able to think coherently. You're in a busy meeting, like the stress of going into that meeting and not being able to sort of order your thoughts in the way that you could. So I guess these are all areas that get, exacerbated during these menopausal years.
Mm.
And so the things that I work on with my clients is ways in which you can help manage that stress, lower that cortisol, make yourself more resilient so that when those stresses arise, you're better able to deal with them, because you can't take them away unless you give up your day job or, whatever it might be. They're still always going to be there. But what we can do is manage how we respond to them.
Mm. Yes. So, what are some of the ways that you recommend people manage their stresses, particularly if they're busy?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I think number one, and this is something you will resonate with best than anyone as an expert in this area, is sleep. And it's easier said than done, because if you've got night sweats and you've got whatever going on, and you're waking up in the middle of the night worrying about stuff, it's a hard one to nail. But so they can work with somebody like you. They can do, your sleep hypnosis course, or they can start to, work on sleep hygiene. So number one is sleep. That's where I normally start.
Yeah.
And do whatever we can do to improve the sleep. And then the second, I think, which is really important, is nutrition. I think people underestimate how inflammatory bad foods can be. And I shouldn't say bad, because I don't believe there are inherently bad or inherently good foods. But I do think you can make better food choices which have a less inflammatory effect on the body.
I think people don't realize how much our diet impacts our stress levels.
Yes, yeah, and our mental perspective as well. I know I can have a certain type of meal out. So you go out and you have a pizza and ice cream or whatever, for lack of a better example. The next day I almost feel like I've got a food hangover,
Yeah.
because that food actually makes you more foggy headed. It impacts your sleep. You don't get as good quality sleep. Your blood sugar goes up and then your blood sugar goes down. So all of that again has an inflammatory effect on the body. And so fluctuating hormones need as much support as they possibly can. So you want to remove as much inflammation from your life, as much stress from your life as you can. So managing sleep, managing your diet, managing your blood sugar, incorporating more what I call parasympathetic activities, so more easy, calming activities into your life. If you've been someone who has always exercised or likes to exercise by going for a run or doing a spinning class, well, that's great, but that's inflammatory in many ways for the body. It raises your cortisol. So maybe looking to incorporate more relaxing activities. Could be yoga, could be Pilates, could be breath, it could be mindfulness, meditation, could be reading a book, could be listening to music, could be walking your dog.
Yeah. And how do you, as someone with effectively two jobs, how do you fit all of that in? Because looking after ourselves as we get older
Yeah,
feels like a full-time job, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
It does, but what I would say is the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you make it your lifestyle, the easier it becomes, and the less it feels like something you have to do, because it becomes automatic. It's, redoing those same activities become habits and then become lifestyle. So,
Yes.
yeah, so I guess in answer to your question, I've been incorporating all on a kind of almost like a phasic approach for a number of years now. Definitely didn't happen overnight. And there was a few years ago when my health really wasn't top quality, and that was when I had to look at everything. Look at my sleep, look at my nutrition, look at my rest and recovery, look at how I was training. So
Yeah. So
baby step thing.
baby steps, yes. Habit stacking, isn't it? Small, tiny steps. Do what you can manage. So what does a day in the life of you actually look like? I'm sorry, I'm so fascinated with lawyers.
Okay, well, it's a bit strange with COVID at the minute, because we're sort of working 1 week in the office and 1 week out. But if I'm in the office, I wake up, I normally get woken up by my dog, and I take him out for a walk. And so that for me is the most important part of my day, because I get outside, I get light, I get movement, and I just feel centered for the rest of the day. I'm with
What
him, I'm
time?
in nature. I get up around 6:30. He wakes me up, like, even if I did, even if I wanted to sleep later, forget it. And during that time I check in with my clients, so that's sort of that morning check in with them, usually via WhatsApp, sometimes via a call. I'm back and at my desk in the showered in the office by 9:30 at the latest, usually earlier. In Hong Kong, we live very close to sort of where we work, and where we live is close, 10 minutes away. I'm in the office until 6-7 o'clock. I usually then walk home, and either go out with friends, maybe for a bite to eat, do something social, or have a quiet evening. Like, I'm definitely not rock and roll anymore. But that would be a fairly typical day for me.
So how do you fit in your exercise? You do that
So
at work?
sometimes lunchtime. So the training I'll either do at lunchtime, and I probably train 5 days out of 7, and at the weekends.
This is the thing when you sort of consolidate your life and your work and your living situation
Yeah.
and your exercise are all very, very close together, actually makes it a lot easier when you don't have a long commute and things like that.
And I think that's a lot of people say, why have you been in Hong Kong so long? And apart from it being an amazing city, the convenience gives me 2 extra hours in my day. Those 2 extra hours that mean that I can train for myself, I can catch up with friends, I can, do whatever it is. But 2 hours that I never had when I was working in London and commuting every day.
Mm.
So it's definitely an added advantage.
Yeah, and I guess when you're commuting, the only thing you can really do is sort of listen to stuff. So you can listen to a podcast or learn another language or write
Yeah.
something, but you're not using your body. And I think we've become so sedentary, haven't we, as a society? It's almost like movement is optional these days.
Right, which is the antithesis of what we were designed for. Back to what we were saying at the beginning of our chat before the podcast, like as hunter-gatherers, we had a very different lifestyle, to what we have now. And I don't know, I work with my clients sometimes to find hacks to get them to incorporate more movement, whether it be, an exercise bike at home that they can watch TV on, or a walking, a treadmill desk. There are things that you can sort of, incorporate to ensure you get good movement.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's just about looking for it all, isn't it? And being motivated. I think the hardest thing is starting, and the hardest thing is then keeping going. But once you've been keeping going for quite a long time, then it's easy for that momentum to just perpetuate.
Yeah, agree,
I
agree.
never thought I would be with my trainer for 3 years. I've been with her for 3 years now, and I'm just like mind blown at how consistent I've been exercising. I've never exercised that consistently. I was very much, in my 20s and 30s, all about like that boom and bust, like diet, exercise, go for it 100%, and then nothing. Like you're either on it or you're off it. But this whole idea of slow burn consistently is so much more sustainable and so much more apt for menopause.
Absolutely. And interestingly, like, what do you think are the key reasons that you've stayed with her for 3 years?
Well, because I'm not having to think about what I'm exercising, she's
Yeah.
doing it for me. Lots
Yeah.
of variety, lots of different types of exercise that I do with her, so it keeps it interesting. We
Yeah.
have a conversation. I really look forward to going and sort of offloading a little bit, bless her.
And the accountability, I guess, right? She's
Yeah.
she's expecting to see you, and you paid money, back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah,
Amazing.
for sure. So, what are your personal tips for improving sleep? What do you do to help you improve your sleep?
Oh, I've tried everything. And I think the best advice I ever got was to look at my morning routine with as much emphasis as my evening routine. So, I spent years sort of trying to have this perfect nighttime routine, but, the morning actually really does set you up for success. So I think, the research supports this as well, like that, getting up, getting outdoors and getting sunlight into your eyes is one of the, and exercise, light movement as two of the most important things you can do. And they're called Zeitgeber, so external cues or influences that help us to reset our circadian clock. So, even if you're someone that's not a morning person, even if you're someone that wakes up foggy headed, getting up, getting out, getting sunlight into your eyes, getting moving, having food, these all tell the body it's time to go. And once you get your circadian rhythm sort of set on track, then it really helps your body know what to do when it's bedtime as well. Every cell has a clock. So if you set the clock ticking in the morning, it really, really helps me at least, and a lot of people I work with at the end of the day. The other things that I find hugely impact the quality of my sleep is eating too late before bed. I was a terrible one that I wouldn't feel, I'd eat almost till I went to bed, or I'd come home from work and feel like I had to have like a proper meal before I went to bed. So eating lighter or earlier has helped me. And the other thing that I still struggle with, but I know it makes a big difference, is blue light. So not scrolling on my phone, 2 hours before bed, not watching Netflix 2 hours before bed. And if you're going to do it, which we all do, wearing the orange blockers.
Yeah,
Those are the things that have made the biggest impact for me.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have a dog now and I get up, he wakes me up in the morning. I get up, I put my dry robe on, still got my PJs on underneath. get up, just walking around the block. And as much as I sometimes grumble when I'm doing it, I actually couldn't not do it now because it's been going on for almost 2 years, and that habit is so ingrained, and it really does set me up for the
Um,
day. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it really, really does. So I love what you said that, and I completely agree that, every cell has a clock, and you've got to start that clock ticking from the minute you wake up, and then you push up your sleep drive, your
yes, the
your
adenosine.
the adenosine molecule.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
important. It's fascinating, sleep. It's really, really fascinating. Okay, a couple more questions for you, if that's all right. Um,
Yes.
I am also very fascinated with detoxification, liver health, gut health, and all of that. Is this stuff that you address in your big menopause program? What's it called? Thrive Through Menopause.
Thrive through menopause. Um, Indirectly, we do. So we talk about the importance of detoxification, and sort of lifestyle strategies that you can employ to improve that. We don't go in depth because it can become, I guess, quite science based.
Mhm.
But what we do really, really encourage people to focus on, and we educate around, is the importance of nutrition, which indirectly or actually directly impacts your gut health, so that your microbiome is directly influenced by the food that you eat and the variety of the food that you eat. um, and we do talk quite a lot actually about the importance of detoxification just naturally, whether it be sweating, making sure you're going to the bathroom every day. I mean, you will be amazed how many clients that I've had, and I said, do how regular is your digestion, how often do you go to the bathroom? They're like, oh, I'm pretty regular. And I'm like, oh, how regular is that? A couple of times a week. And my face is trying to hide the horror. But it's super important because because we're talking about hormones, this is relevant. Like, our body is making and using and excreting used hormones all the time. So if you're not going to the bathroom every single day, you can recirculate, repackage, recirculate, hormones which don't should not be recirculating.
Yeah.
Estrogen is a really good example of that. So I do think detoxification, but not in an excessive way, is super important. I just mean insofar as drinking lots of water, making sure you're sweating, exercising, moving, going to the bathroom every day. Simple, simple stuff.
Yeah, getting enough fiber, uh,
Yes.
things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
making sure that your diet is healthy. And also, I've noticed how much stress and emotional trauma can really impact the digestion and the microbiome and the body processes. I went through a bit of stress actually recently, within the last 8 weeks, definitely out the other side now. But oh my God, I went to the doctors because I thought I had some kind of bowel cancer going on or something, because I just had incredibly loose bowel. Sorry, too much
Yeah.
information maybe, but for
Right, which is good that you saw that as not being right and went to seek help, which is what we all should be doing.
yeah, really, like I just thought something's not right here. Need to rule out the worst. And then, within sort of a few days actually of getting the test results back, my mind was settled, and all the stress from the events previous started to settle. I started to find my new rhythm. The autumn kicked in, which I love. I'm a big lover of autumn. When it starts cooling down, my systems go back online. When it's too hot, my systems are like, all
Yeah.
those dials going everywhere. It can't find its, it can't
Yeah.
settle. That's what summer's like for me. It feels very discombobulating. Um, but I was so surprised at how this stressful event impacted my physiology. And I know this stuff. I mean, I work with people on this stuff all the time, but when it happens to you, it's really quite surprising, because you think your nails, you're resilient, because you know all this stuff.
Well, that's it. And you've hit the nail on the head, because just knowing it doesn't mean it necessarily works better than anyone else. I mean, we know all this stuff, about menopause and sleep. Does that mean we will have an easier menopause or sleep better? Absolutely not. We might have the tools to help facilitate that process.
Mm.
Um, and going back to what you were saying about the gut health, I find that fascinating. I mean, they call it the second brain for a reason, and there are more messages that go from the gut to the brain than from the brain to the gut, which I
Right.
find fascinating,
So
absolutely
that
fascinating.
basically means your body experience has a massive impact on your mental
Yeah,
experience. So your body is almost like your body is representative of your subconscious, those instincts like the fear response, the protection mode, the stuff like that we have no control over, in essence. Like when it comes in, it just affects the body straight away. We can't rationalize it. Once it's
Yeah.
in the body, it's in the body, and then we have to work with the mind body connection to try and rebalance and reset everything.
And I think that's one message that I think is so important for all anyone listening to this actually, is how we talk to ourselves matters. Having negative thoughts and feelings and talking to ourselves in a negative way does impact us. It impacts your gut and your body and your responses and your brain, and yeah, that's something that I've had to work on for a number of years, and I feel like I'm only just getting there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It takes time, it really does. And it can be impacted by so many issues from childhood, from past trauma. We don't even realize that we learned these particular messages. We can be really hard on ourselves because of certain things that happened in our past. And that critical voice just keeps going, keeps going, keeps like banging you in. Yeah, anyway. Um, all right, let's finish the conversation by talking about biohacking.
Mm. Oh, I
So,
love.
yeah, I mean, what do you do to hack into your biology?
Oh, I'm a big fan of biohacking. Maybe mainly because I really like to try the latest like fad tools and gadgets. But I shouldn't call them fad, because a lot of these are actually really rooted in science and have research to support. So the things that I'm currently loving, I have a red light on the in my bedroom. It actually hangs on the back of my door, and I love that. So it's by a brand called Joovv, Joovv. And what that does is help support mitochondria health. It's meant to also be good for aging and for skin, but many sort of different benefits. But I have to say, even if it's just in my mind, after 10 minutes in front of that, I feel like superwoman.
Amazing.
So
I've heard of
that's something that I do enjoy using that. I am on myself every so often, and on my clients I use a continuous glucose monitor. So that's a way to track people's blood sugar, and I find that's very helpful and beneficial for educating people around how foods react for them, back to the personalization of nutrition and diet. What else do I like? There's a device called a Lumen device, which I'm also a fan of. So that tracks how much, whether or not you're burning carbs or whether or not you're burning fat. Again, that's very useful for us in this phase when our insulin resistance is higher, our insulin sensitivity is lower. So we might not be managing carbohydrates as well. So this is a good tool to learn how to manage carbs better, get into fat burning a bit quicker. What else? Nutrition, I think, I don't know if I'd call it biohacking, but the importance of good nutrition for overall wellness and health, I think, cannot be overlooked. I've recently been doing some research on mushrooms. I think this is not psychedelics, although I wouldn't put that out of the picture. But just looking at things like chaga and reishi, and these types of mushrooms, lion's mane, that can help really lift energy and calm you down. So I'm a big fan of things like that, and adaptogens.
Yeah, yeah. I've got some chaga mushroom tea at home, and I do feel its impact. I also um, got these granules. I got them yesterday, and they're called, oh no, Sam. Oh, I'm not going to remember. I will put the link in the show notes. Samham something. I think they're Ayurvedic, but they're really good for the winter. And they help. There's research behind it as well, that they help with colds, mucus, and
Yeah.
that sort of dampness that we get over here in the winter. So I
Right.
started on that, and I really feel its effects. It's quite peppery. So
Yeah.
if you're naturally quite a hot person, it probably wouldn't work for you. But if
Yeah.
feel the cold in the winter, or you get a lot of excessive mucus, like my
Yeah.
mucus is so much better today, and I've literally only had 2 sachets of it over the last 2 days.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah, so that. And then also, do you do the infrared sauna?
Yes, I love that. Really, really love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's good, isn't it? Kind of the warmth gets right down into the bones of you and it lasts for a long
Yeah.
time.
And that's, we were talking about detoxification earlier, and that's another fantastic way to get a really good detox from the body, and enjoyable. I take my book in, and it's soaking wet by the end, or but also it's like 20 minutes where I'm on my own, which in and of itself is a great moment.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you do the cold ice baths or anything like that?
I really wish I was brave enough. Yeah, I've got a very good friend who runs on the beach in Bournemouth and always finishes his run with a dip in the water.
Yeah.
And for me, I cannot think of anything worse. And yet I know it's one of the best things that you can do for muscle recovery, for just general health. Actually, cold immersion therapy.
I have a course in it if you want to become a cold water therapy practitioner.
Oh, I would be interested.
Yeah, well, once you understand why it's so
Yeah.
powerful on the physiology and the mind, then you're so much more motivated to give it a go. And I also teach people how to have a cold shower. So not just like stick your head under and that's it. There's a
Yeah.
method behind it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm very interested then. That sounds great.
Well, it's so lovely to talk to you, Beth. And I've had a look at your website. It's a really beautiful website. So go and check out Beth's website. What's the URL?
It's www.bfit, BFIT, and then hyphen the right way. And that's spelled and then right, WRIGHT way.com.
Lovely. And what social media platform are you most active on?
Probably Instagram. Again, sort of BFit underscore the right way.
Lovely. Well, go and follow Beth because she's bloody gorgeous. And
Oh,
you will get lots of inspiration from her rippedness and all of her incredible mindset tips and yeah, everything else that she puts out there. So go and follow her. Thank you so much, Beth.
thanks, Sally. I've loved every minute. Have an amazing workout this afternoon.
Thank you. And I did have an amazing workout. If you're on my Instagram, you will see that I actually deadlifted my highest personal best. I deadlifted 32 kilos, which is a way to go from Beth's 70 kilos, but I am so proud of myself. And it was a really odd experience because the first time I attempted to lift that amount of weight, I really hesitated and I actually couldn't lift it. There was a real kind of stopping point mentally and physically. But I did my kind of hypnosis trick on myself where I told my body that it was strong enough to lift it. And so I lifted it once and then I realized and recognized that I could lift it. And then I managed to do 2 sets of 6 reps with that heavy weight. So I am just so proud of myself and so thrilled that I had that conversation with Beth and she really spurred me on to lift heavier. And actually today, it's now Sunday the 2nd of October as I'm recording this. I've just been to the gym and I am definitely not afraid of those heavier weights now. So it's such a fantastic thing to do, is test yourself with a personal best exercise. So just before we go, I wanted to let you know about a special offer I'm running for Menopause Awareness Day, which is October the 18th, 2022. If you're interested in having some hypnotherapy with me to help you through the menopause transition and to help you find your authenticity, build confidence and create better habits, then I'm offering you a one-time 18% off rapid transformational therapy for the whole month of October. So please take advantage of this if you've been on the fence for a while or if you've been a client of mine before and you want to have another RTT session with me. Take advantage of this because I very rarely do discounts for RTT. I don't need to because I'm always busy, but I have decided to give you, my listeners, an 18% discount to commemorate a very special day, Menopause Awareness Day on the 18th of October. Now that discount is valid as long as you book your free consultation with me before the end of October. So as long as you schedule it in, doesn't matter if we get to the consultation in November or December, as long as you book it in by the end of October, then you can claim your discount. What you'll need to do is go to sallygarozzo.com, go to book a free consultation, and somewhere in the intake form, just mention the Menopause Awareness Day discount. Remember, if you're liking these podcasts and you really believe in getting the word out there about menopause, midlife and mental health, then please subscribe and leave a review. It just means that we get to reach out to more people who need to hear this message. And happy people means a happy world. Your interaction might very well help to save another person's sanity. Please share this, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.